It's very obvious to the watchers of my channel that I'm a Palantir bull, but just because I'm bullish on a stock doesn't mean I'm going to ignore all the bad things or the worrisome things or the bear points around a stock. I'm always looking at those bear points to make sure I'm staying balanced. I don't want to get in a position where I'm ignoring all the bad things about a stock and only focusing on the good things, and then I get blindsided by the bad stuff. Many investors find themselves in this position, and it can be very frustrating, but it's very easy to combat by listening to the bear case and seeing if it holds any weight. So today in this video, I'm not going to talk about all the amazing things with Palantir, although I think there are many amazing things with Palantir, and that's why it's a top 3 holding for me, but rather I'm going to talk about my biggest worry with Palantir stock. I'm excited to dive into this video, but first, if you're new here, I'm Austin. I'm a co-owner of CloudBusinessQueen.com. I'm a stock market investor, and most importantly for this video, as I already mentioned, I am a Palantir shareholder. It is a top 3 position for me, and it has been a truly great performing stock for me so far. Real quick, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and do that. Become one of those 3,700 or so people and drop a like on the video. I appreciate you doing that. Helps out the channel in a massive way. Okay, so let's get into it. I am not worried about Palantir's products at all. I'm not worried about Palantir's ability to compete with any other software in the space that they're playing in. I believe they have industry-leading products and they're going to stay on the cutting edge of the tech. It is obviously extremely important to a business to have the best product in the game. I love to own a stock that is building the best products possible and offering the best products possible. If that's their number one mission, they're going to have a very long runway of growth, and they're going to be able to stay on the cutting edge for longer than their competitors who are trying to play in the number 2 or 3 or 4 spot. Palantir is a stock that I'm not just trying to hold this for like 1 year. I've already been in the stock for multiple years, and I'm trying to hold this stock for the next 5 to 7 to 10 or maybe even more than that years. So if I have a stock that's focused on product first, I'm really happy about that because I'm going to be holding this stock for an extremely long time. So if there's something weak in the business model, like what I'm going to talk about with my worry here, that thing can get handled over time, but they're going to stay on the cutting edge and they're going to stay as the number 1 player in their product because that's what their primary focus is. As long as they can figure the other things out, that stock and that company can be a great returner over time. So to be clear, I'm glad that product is Palantir's number 1 concern. But if I have to find a worry and I have to find a concern with Palantir, my concern is around the sales culture at Palantir. And the sales culture not being in a good spot and continuing to not be in a good spot can mean negative things down the line if they're not able to figure this out. If you don't have someone to sell the product can't move. You can't keep increasing revenue like crazy if there's no one there to sell the product. To an extent, a product will sell itself. But a company with a worse product than you, with a way better sales team, can get way more sales because their sales staff is just killing it and the sales culture is great. If we've got the best product in the world and we want to change the world with our product like Palantir wants to do, then it's wise to build a very strong sales culture to get this software into more organizations' hands to help them run their business or their organization or their government more efficiently. That's what Palantir wants to do. So building a sales team is part of that mission, and that's just not something they've mastered as of yet. Figuring out the sales situation for them could make their revenue absolutely explode. Instead of them staying around the 20% revenue growth mark on a year-over-year basis, we could see 25 or 28 or even jump back into the 30s. But if the sales culture stays how it is, the revenue growth could stay in the high teens or low 20s, which is certainly not terrible, but higher revenue growth is definitely better for a growth company. And if the sales culture gets worse than it is right now, which is probably going to be difficult because the reviews on the sales culture at Palantir are really bad, and I'll show you these things here in just a second. But if it gets worse than it is now, we could see that hurt the revenue in a major way, down back into the low teens or even lower than that, and that could definitely crush the stock price in the short term and potentially dampen the long-term growth expectations for Palantir. So where I want to start with this worry is that Alex Karp has publicly mocked and made fun of salespeople in the past and said that Palantir doesn't need salespeople because the product is so good. That might have been true for years and years, but at a certain point, we're going to need a really strong sales culture to become one of the biggest companies in the world. In order to sell to the biggest companies in the world who are going to pay you the most amount of money, you're going to have a sales team that knows what they're doing in order to sell this product to these larger organizations, to these governments, etc. So if from the top down, your CEO is saying he doesn't like salespeople, he mocks salespeople, and he says that Palantir doesn't need salespeople, this was a little while ago. It was like pre-pandemic times when he was saying these things. But regardless, that is his general attitude towards salespeople, and that's probably not going to lead to the best sales culture at a company. That by itself wouldn't crush it, but let's check out what the reviews are. These are from people that have worked on Palantir's sales team. So on RepView, Palantir has a 67.39% RepView score, which is definitely below average for software companies. And then we look a little further and we can see two main categories: culture and leadership, and then base compensation. The good thing is that general consensus is that base compensation is pretty good. They've got 3.5 stars out of 5 on base compensation. That's in the 37th percentile for the industry. Pretty nice, especially for a smaller company like Palantir. Let's remember, Palantir is not a $2 trillion company like Microsoft and Apple and those big dogs like that. Palantir is a much smaller company than a lot of the companies that play in this industry. But then where they're lagging behind massively is in sales culture and sales leadership. 1.9 stars out of 5, and then they're in the 4th percentile. That is impressively terrible on the sales culture side from RepView. Comparing this to somebody like Salesforce, just to get kind of a side-by-side comparison inside the industry, Salesforce on RepView has an 84.95% RepView score. Culture and leadership, 3.6 stars out of 5, and that's in the 70th percentile. And then base compensation higher than Palantir as well at 3.7% in the 54th percentile. So if Palantir wants to be Salesforce's size and have Salesforce's reputation, they're going to have to get that sales team to be at a similar level as Salesforce. And then when we look at Palantir's sales reviews on Glassdoor, they've got 3.0 stars out of 5 stars and a very low 31% would recommend to a friend. That 3.0 stars out of 5 compares to the industry average inside of information technology sales of a 3.9 on Glassdoor. So needless to say, they are underperforming. There's also conversations on Reddit about it, not the most reputable source in the world, but hey, looking for opinions on the company on the sales side for Palantir. This guy says, I was considering a job there 2 years ago, spoke with some AEs. They all said there's no sales support or structure. You're a lone wolf on an island, and the engineers have big egos. Wasn't a supporting culture, scared me away, could be different now. A lot of these reviews that I've read are from 2023, 2024. They're recent. The sales culture is still an issue for Palantir. It's something they absolutely have to work on. Yes, when you focus on product, you're going to have the engineers in control, and the engineers might end up having egos about them whenever the number one focus of the mission is product. But that doesn't mean that a close number 2 can't be sales. We got to get sales to be more important of a factor for Palantir management, and they've got to put more investment into this. If they take a hit on profitability because they're trying to really, truly, and honestly hire the best sales staff in the world and best sales trainers in the world to help their sales staff and to provide that layer of support that they need in order to sell their product to more organizations and get more government deals and keep on growing that corporate revenue, then that's what it takes. Do I think they should switch from being a product-focused company to a sales-focused company? No, but I think they need to elevate the sales culture in a massive way, and they should probably go on a whole PR campaign about trying to bring salespeople to Palantir and showing that Palantir sales culture is good and it's getting better, and they need to sell that culture to the salespeople, right? Kind of ironic. If they just allocate a little bit more resources to this, I think this could be a major lever for Palantir's revenue growth. And we know that Palantir has been able to run the business so well that increasing the revenue just a few percentage points is going to lead to the bottom line exploding. For every 20% revenue growth they've got, they're going to get well more than 40% EPS growth. That's what we've seen over the last 8 quarters, and way more than that in operating income growth. So if they can bring the revenue growth up by focusing on the sales team, I think we're going to be in an even better spot than we are now. So just to sum it all up here, the weak sales culture with Palantir is absolutely my biggest worry with Palantir stock. I think it's the only bear case out there that actually holds any weight anymore. There used to be quite a few bear cases that you could bring up with Palantir, but over the last 8 to 10 quarters, Palantir has absolutely knocked them out one by one by one by one, and I think this is one of those last things that they've really got to put a lot of effort into and fix that sales culture. I want to know what you think about this. Do you think that this is actually the biggest risk to Palantir, or do you see a different risk out there with Palantir? What have you seen that maybe I haven't noticed? I want to look at all the risks and all the great things about a company. Palantir has an insane amount of positive things going for it. That's why it's such a large position for me. I think there's a few things that are negative, with this being definitely the largest thing and the only real bear case that has any weight. I want to know if you've thought of something that I haven't thought of on the bear case side. Even if you're bullish, let me know what you think about Palantir, just so we can stay balanced and think about all the positives and all the negatives. Let me know what you're doing with Palantir stock in the comments below. Are you buying right now? Are you holding? Are you selling? Are you doing any options plays with Palantir? I want to hear what you're doing. Thank you so much for being here. Have an amazing day.